I get asked a lot how I do this particular method when it comes to my animal designs, mainly. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what this method is and why I use it. So I like to use the method of short rows and then switching into working into continuous rounds. What this does and allows me to do is create very realistic curves and edges, like this leg I have for my Hank the Giraffe pattern, by working in short rows like this section here. So I started in rounds and then I actually switched to a couple of rows back and forth, and then I switched again back into working in the round, and then here back into rows, and then again into rounds, and then I finished off, we're just gonna call it his shoulder. I finished off his shoulder working in rounds, or working back and forth in rows. So what I'm going to show you today is how to take these rows and go back into working into the round. It seems like a complicated thing, but it's actually a lot easier than you would expect. Once you get the hang of it and get a better understanding and grasp of it, it's super easy. So here we have, like I said, this is one of the legs for my giraffe pattern, and I need to finish the last round so I have a nice clean edge for attaching to the body later. Now, the final row of this pattern does leave an open stitch at the end, and you can see the same thing for all the subsequent rows, or all the rows before as well. That's what gives us this little step effect. So to start from here back into the round, and this is the same for these shorter areas as well. So this method will work for anything that you're doing when it comes to working in short rows and going back into the round. So to begin, you are going to single crochet into that first available stitch. Now, just like working a border on a washcloth or a blanket, the next stitch you're going to place is going to actually be right here in this turning post, as I'm going to call it, instead of an actual stitch. And that gets you a nice, you start getting that already nice clean edge and making everything line up nice and evenly instead of this stepped look. So right here, I've got another open available stitch. So I'm going to single crochet into that. And again, into the side turning post. And I'm going to continue doing that until we've made it to the end of these steps, as we'll call it. Oops. Helps if I don't let my hook fall out. Okay. Now, this is my last open stitch. I'm going to single crochet into that. Now, within this pattern is a nice solid chunk of basic rows, just worked back and forth. There's no increases, decreases, so it's just a nice straight edge. So for this section here, again, just like working a border on anything else, you are going to place one single crochet at the end of each of these rows until you make it down to the bottom where we started the work of the short rows. Now this is the point where we are really starting to get into that working back into the round, because this little section here are the stitches remaining from the previous round, continuous rounds. Whereas right here is where we started working those solid rows. So at this point, you've done your single crochet around this turning post here. There is this little space right below that. You're actually going to skip it. That is not a stitch that you want to work into. because that is where your turning post begins for your rows. So you've got your single crochet around your post. You're going to skip this little space right here, and you're actually going to start your next single crochet into the next available unworked stitch. And then you're going to single crochet across those until you reach the opposite side. Like so. Now, just like this corner, we're going to do the same in this corner. So I've got one more remaining stitch. So I'm going to single crochet into that. We're going to skip this little corner space right here, and you're going to single crochet around this turning post above. And then just like the opposite side, single crochet into each open edge until you make it back up to your steps. And then again, just like the other steps on the opposite side, you're going to single crochet into the open stitch and then into your turning post. And you repeat that all the way up like this. The hook is squeaky. Into the stitch, around the post, into the stitch, around the post. If you have to repeat it like that because it makes life easier for you, go for it. Sometimes clearly I do it myself. So into the stitch, and then this is my last turning post. And now we've made it back to the top, or the final row that we did. So you're gonna work in those remaining stitches from the last row that you did. 2, 3, 4, and that completes changing from rows back into working a continuous round. Now this is actually the end of the piece, so I'm going to finish this off by slip stitching into the next stitch and then yarning over and just pulling that yarn tail through. And there you go. It sounds complicated when you're trying to explain it in words, but when showing it, hopefully it doesn't seem as scary or as complicated as it sounds. This is what I use and do to get the very realistic shapes. Like this is, one of the legs for my giraffe pattern. Here is, it's not stuffed, so it's a little wonky. Here's one of his rear legs. So short rows are how I go about getting these very realistic looking shapes. And even he's not finished, don't judge me. But even his head, from here, his neck to, you can kind of see where I started going back into continuous rounds is this straight line here. Forward are all continuous rounds, but you can see here all of the back of his head are all done in short rows, and then it's gone back into, so you can get that very realistic looking shaping when it comes to my patterns. I know I'm not the only one that uses this method. I love it. It's my favorite. If you do not have my giraffe pattern, I recommend getting it. And the main reason I decided to break this tidbit down is because I actually have a new pattern releasing on the 23rd. And this is kind of a need to know method of choice, because again, with her, so this is Dottie the cow. So again, with her head, you can see to up here, these are all rows, switched to continuous rounds. Her leg, well, her butt, but her legs have this really nice, realistic look to it. We've got the curve here, we've got the curve here, the nice realistic curve for how the arms are attached to the body. Like, working in short rows, especially with animals, is my go-to thing. I love it. I love that it gives me the opportunity to get more realistic looking, but still cute patterns. But yeah, so this is definitely a need to know thing, especially if you're gonna be working on my patterns. Sorry, not sorry. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. Go grab yourself my giraffe pattern. I will have it linked in the description below. And as soon as she is available on the 23rd, I will add the link to grab Dottie the cow as well into the description. But before then, enjoy the giraffe. Go check out some other things. Make sure you subscribe if you make anything. Make sure you're tagging me because I want to see everything that you're making. Use hashtag C3TaughtMe so I can follow along that way. All the things. But I'm gonna go because there's a few other things I need to finish up with her pattern before she's available for release. So I'm gonna go do that. You go do you, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.